Rahmat, can we go? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala Rasulil Karim amma ba'd. Respected guests, colleagues, esteemed guests from the Royal Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, fellow journalists, we thank you for availing yourself this morning, in the bitterly cold morning, to come out here in Fordsburg, Johannesburg, South Africa, for this, to mark this momentous occasion. For those media houses and those who are watching online, we welcome you as well for availing yourself. Just to let you know before we start proceedings, there are many media houses present today. I'm not going to mention their names in case I miss some, but there are also other media houses from across the country covering this event live on their platforms and also on social media. Before we get into the proceedings, I would like to call one of the long-standing members of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council, board member of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council, Qari Musa Sirat, to open with a recitation of the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Shukran Qari Sahib for the melodious recitation. We believe in Islam, it's always that when any event that we have, we open with a recitation of Quran to install blessings and barakah into that event or that function. Today certainly marks a momentous occasion in the history of the South African pilgrimage, and certainly for this august organization of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council, marking 29 years of existence. And I don't want to take much away from the speakers who are going to follow me, but just to mention we have our guest from the Kingdom of Saudi Embassy, from the Embassy of Saudi Arabia, will be introduced officially by the President of SAHUC, Hafiz Muaz Kasu. We have the head of the mission, Hafiz Ismail Kuvadia, who heads the mission to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to service the pilgrims. And we also have former President and also board member of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council, Brother Shane Isop, present on the panel. We'll call Hafiz Muaz in a few minutes, inshallah, to make the huge announcement, the announcement that we've all been waiting for. And thereafter, followed by Brother Shane Isop, and then we'll take questions from the floor. If there are any media houses or those who are able to engage via the social media platforms who want to ask questions, you may do that on the YouTube platform, and we'll receive the questions on our side. Like I said, it certainly marks a momentous occasion, a huge occasion and something in the feather of the cap of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council, not only for the organization, but also its role players and colleagues and partners and affiliates that we synergize with in all facets of regulating the Hajj industry. So without taking much away from the speakers after me, it's my pleasure and a great honor to welcome the President of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council, Hafiz Muaz Kasu, to deliver this momentous and remarkable occasion and feat that has certainly been made possible through the mercy of Almighty Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, respected ulama, huffaz, His Excellency, Mr. Sultan from the Royal Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, brothers and sisters, and most importantly, the Hajis, the guests of Allah from South Africa. All praises are due unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and salutations on our beloved Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakallah to everyone that has taken the time to join the press conference, be it in person, live on television, live on radio stations, and via our social media platforms. Jazakallah to the media houses for making this possible. We would like to express our sincere gratitude to the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under the leadership of the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Royal Highness King Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, Isra Al Khair, which is the muassasa and the service provider, and all the role players who were instrumental in making Hajj 2024-1445 a success. We cannot forget our own SAHUC medical and mission team. Alhamdulillah. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants all our Hajis a Hajj Maqbool and Hajj Mabrur, and at the same time we request our Hajis to remember us in your duas, inshallah. We would like to also take this opportunity to thank the Royal Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Department of International Relations and Cooperation for their continued support. Through the grace and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, SAHUC is 2 times recipient of the Labaitum Award. The Labaitum Award is one of the awards from the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah in terms of the programs and measuring performance and beneficiary satisfaction. This award aims to spread the concept of competitiveness among service providers to increase the level of efficiency, quality, and service performance on the guests of Allah. A special thanks must be given to all the SAHUC members, accredited travel operators, as well as our Hajis from 2023 and 2024 from South Africa, who helped make this possible in order for SAHUC to achieve this momentous award from the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah. Alhamdulillah, the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah has issued SAHUC with the quota allocation for Hajj 2025-1446. The base quota remains at an allocation of 2,500 to South Africa. SAHUC, DERCO, as well as the Royal Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, are currently engaging with the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah for an increase in the Hajj quota allocation for South Africa. We humbly request for your continuous du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a quota increase possible for South Africa soon, inshallah al-azim. In preparations for Hajj 2025-1446, we will be soon launching the dynamic registration portal during the month of July. The dynamic registration portal serves as a guidance with regards to prospective Hujjaj place in the queue. This place is based on date and time priority of registration. Positions in the dynamic portal are not finite and will change as a result of queries being attended to. In order to meet the timeline set out by the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, we need the Hujjaj to access this dynamic list once it is published. SAHUC will inform the public of the timelines from the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah within the month of July. We would like to hereby extend an invitation to the Muslim organizations across South Africa or public representatives who want to join SAHUC as volunteers. Please make contact with us, and inshallah you can join this organization to serve the guests of Rahman solely for the pleasure of Allah. Last Hajj season 2023-1444, our South African Hajis in both Camp A and Camp D experienced challenges in terms of certain non-service deliveries during the 5 days of Hajj. The South African Hajj and Umrah Council, along with stakeholders in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, attended to the Hajis' concerns during the 5 days of Hajj, and although we tried our utmost best to remedy it, unfortunately this could not be achieved as we were in the midst of the days of Hajj. During the days of Hajj, SAHUC and representatives from the travel operators whose Hajis were affected had a meeting in Mina. In this meeting, we discussed their complaints and committed to the Hajis that we will address these issues, and SAHUC will not rest until we, through the permission and the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, resolve the shortcomings, inshallah al-azim. Some of the major concerns which were raised by the South African Hajis and SAHUC were as follows. Insufficient security at our camps in both Mina and Arafat, and also Hajis from other countries roaming around in our camps, taking some of our tea, coffee, drinks, food, and security was an issue during the last Hajj season. The quality of the food provided on certain days to our Hujjaj was not acceptable. Sofa beds were provided in both Mina and Arafat, and those caused major issues in terms of space constraints for our Hajis, and it made it very difficult, especially during the time of Salah, for the Muslim brothers and sisters to pray both in Mina and Arafat. We also had issues in Arafat with regards to the aircon system not working and space constraints when putting the mattresses, the sofa beds, it reduced the amount of space between the Hajis in the camps. We had no water in our camps in Mina on day one for approximately around 2 hours. Service deliveries that were shown on the Nusuk app specifically for Camp A were not provided to our Hajis. On the day of Arafat in Camp D, the service providers ran out of water at around 4 p.m. Both SAHUC and the Hajis who remained in the camp until 2 a.m. the next morning had limited to almost no water in our camps. The ablution facilities in Arafat that were provided last year was below par. No provision for those Hajis who were in wheelchairs and for those with disabilities. Majority of our Hajis did not receive meals and drinks to take along with them from Arafat to Muzdalifah, although the service provider sent a truck to Muzdalifah. The moment the truck was open with the refreshments, unfortunately, Hajis from other countries consumed all the meals that were provided for South Africa. SAHUC had raised these major concerns along with other concerns to the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, and inshallah we will divulge those over the next few days. Each year, SAHUC requests Hajis of their specific year to submit their compliments and complaints in writing to SAHUC. We review each complaint against the pilgrim's contract to verify if there is any contractual deviations that warrant a compensation from the travel operator. Alhamdulillah, over the years, in majority of Hajj complaints that had merit contractually, the accredited Hajj operators resolved the matters with the Hajis. Last year, unfortunately, majority of the complaints were against the field of a service provider, specifically for non-service delivery over the 5 days of Hajj. One needs to remember that last year was the first year post-COVID where the numbers were back to pre-COVID in terms of quota allocations for all countries. We want to apologize as SAHUC for taking so long to revert to the Hajis. Unfortunately, this process has taken very long. We had to engage with the role players in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with regards to quantifying the non-service delivery on the 5 days of Hajj against what was offered contractually for both Camp A and Camp D. The majority of the non-service deliverables were in Camp A in comparison to Camp D. Camp A, for those who are not sure, is the special services which we call the VIP with regards to the Mina camps. Just to clarify, non-service delivery claims is when a service provider contractually promises you to provide a service, and if they do not deliver, we have recourse. If the camps get invaded, or if the area is dirty, or if the food is delayed, these do not warrant a non-service delivery. Last year was the first time where the service provider failed to deliver against what was agreed on contractually. After months of official meetings, starting from October 2023, in person and virtually, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, today is a historic moment for SAHUC as well as for our Hajjis. We are pleased to announce that both the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, as well as Itra al-Khair, the service provider, may Allah grant them all lots of barakah, inshallah, and may Allah take them from strength to strength to serve the guests of Rahman. They have agreed an ex gratia payment for the 3,500 pilgrims of South Africa for Hajj season 1444-2023. The total amount of the ex gratia payment received by SAHUC in our Saudi Arabian bank account, which will be refunded to the 3,500 Hajjis of 2023-1444, the amount in Saudi riyals, 3,049,041 Saudi riyals and 67 halalas. Alhamdulillah, and praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have managed to negotiate a 41.5% ex gratia payment for Camp A and a 17.8 ex gratia payment for Camp D. Subhanallah, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We humbly request that all the Hajjis and the Muslim community at large, please do remember us in your du'as, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to utilize us to serve the guests of Rahman only for the pleasure of Allah, to the best of our ability, with complete honesty, integrity, and trust, inshallah. We would like to request all the Hajjis to make 2 rakat shukr namaz and to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this ex gratia payment. Please also remember Muslims throughout the world who are experiencing difficulties, especially our fellow brothers and sisters in Palestine. Jazakallah to everyone for making the time during your busy schedule. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, mabruk, and to all the role players, to the Hujjaj first and foremost, and also a special thanks to Itra al-Khair and the Ministry of Hajj for understanding and listening and taking the considerations and deliberations initiated by SAHUC and his team seriously and responding in such a gratuitous manner that will certainly bring relief, I suppose, inshallah it will, to the Hujjaj, 3,500 pilgrims of 2023. It's certainly a momentous occasion and it adds to the many other instances and efforts that SAHUC has taken over the last 29 years on various fronts in fighting for the Hujjaj, the pilgrims, in terms of costs on the Mashayir on the 5 days of Hajj, in terms of service delivery, in terms of the regulation process and adherence to the guidelines and the rules, and abiding to the rules of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and to ensure a hassle-free Hajj. Yes, we'll always have challenges, instances or occurrences outside of our control, but as best we can, we try to remedy them at the turn, and where not possible, where a situation like this has happened on an unprecedented level, alhamdulillah, through the efforts of all and all the role players, as well as the authorities and the Kingdom of the Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and South Africa, Turco and other role players, we thank all for their efforts. We're going to ask Brother Shaheen Isab to come on now and give us some background in terms of the figures that Hafiz Muaz has just related to you, and the structure around that, and the process that will unfold in those payments being paid out to the 3,500 pilgrims of 2023.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All protocols observed. Excellency, ulama, viewers across the country. Before we begin in terms of unfolding the relevant process and the structures around what was being spoken about by our President, I think it imperative for people to understand the changing environment of Hajj. Up to the time of COVID, Hajj was basically administered by the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, together with what is known as the Tawafa, the Mutawif that took care of different countries and different regions around the world. It is imperative to understand that South Africa could not move to any other entity except stay with what we would know as the Africa non-Arab speaking countries Tawafa Company. And therefore, from the time of inception, from 1995 to around 2022, we were forced to remain with one entity, and any complaints that we would raise with the ministry, with the Muassasa, would be taken into account and taken heed of. Improvements would be made in the ensuing years, but never a discussion of refund. So we need to appreciate that subsequent to COVID taking place, privatization has crept into the service industry of Hajj in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This is all in line with the 2030 vision of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in terms of making sure that by 2030, 30 million mu'tamirin and inshallah 5 to 7 million hujjaj will perform Hajj in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Privatization brings about a choice in service providers. And 2023 was the first year in which that choice was presented to the South African Hajj and Umrah Council and various other entities around the world. We stuck with the entity that we had known over the past 15 years insofar as the service delivery was concerned. And unfortunately, because of privatization, because of changes, because of competition, they fell short in terms of service. But notwithstanding that fact, we stayed with them, we dealt with what was necessary. Our President had gave indication on the numerous amounts of time that was spent to try and find the resolve and recompense to the process of ex gratia. And alhamdulillah, it resulted in the ex gratia payment being done. Now indicated as well is that Camp A refund of 41.5% will go to each pilgrim. And that is as a result of what they paid to the operator in terms of their cost for the 5 days of Hajj. Camp A was heavily affected by comparison to Camp D. Camp D services were there, albeit that a small measure of services may not have been delivered accordingly. We'll get to that process a little bit later. But right now, the funds are sitting in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and as you know, with regards to exchange control and processes regarding to expatriation of funds, it may just take a few days for that funds to come into our coffers in South Africa, after which the necessary process for the refund rollout will take place. What SAHUC has basically done is that we will reach out to each of the accredited Hujjaj from 2023-1444 and inform them of the ex gratia payment due to them once we've received the money in our hands. The accredited pilgrims will be required to furnish SAHUC with the following: an application Hajj reference, which is your application reference at the time of your applying on our system, the name or names of each of the accredited pilgrims of 2023-1444 that may have been accredited in your group, you and your wife, you and your family, etc. If you were an individual, obviously then you on your own. A stamped bank letter confirming the bank account of the accredited pilgrim or pilgrims must be submitted to SAHUC. In groups, for example, there may be multiple people that are part of a group, but they all have different bank accounts. So we will not pay it to one bank account unless all the people in that group agree that that bank account is where the money must go to. A written confirmation stipulating the camp in which the pilgrim was housed, either Camp A or Camp D, which we will then verify against the records that we have on hand, inshallah. Pilgrims are to use a dedicated email for this purpose, and the email address is refund@sahuc refund.org.za. Please note that this email address has specifically been created for this purpose of refund process of the ex gratia payment. It is not to deal with any other queries relating to your place in the queue or any accreditation queries regarding this matter. Anything other than the ex gratia payment queries will be discarded from this email address. There is a process for that on the Hajj system as we stand. Where a pilgrim has since passed away after performing Hajj in 2023, SAHUC will require a letter from the executor of the deceased estate, together with a copy of the death certificate, including all the information requested above, meaning the application reference number, the bank confirmation letter, etc., so that we are clear that we are going to be paying the money that is due to the correct person. We do not want to have situations afterwards where we are paying the money across to other people. SAHUC will verify all the information received, reconcile it with our records, and once that reconciliation process is concluded, the refund process will begin and our treasury will start making the necessary payments. Note that no refund will be done until all the funds out of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has reached our bank account in South Africa, which is currently work in progress at the moment. So this is the process by which the ex gratia payment refunds are going to be done. And inshallah, we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants barakah in these refunds as a result of whatever was due to those people, to give them a clear peace of mind. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran Dr. Shaheen for the informative information. The key information I suppose we need to know, especially for the Hajj of 2023, the process in how do we get the monies back, inshallah. This information will be put on the SAHUC website, on the SAHUC social media. There will also be a press release within a few days relating to the press conference, and also with regards to the figures and the process of how, what the information SAHUC requires from the Hajj. And you can follow that process, inshallah, and we will surely respond timelessly to those queries, inshallah. We're going to open the floor for questions. Please feel free to ask questions. Please give your name, your full name, the name of your media house, and then you can pose your questions. Before Radio Islam, we have Salam Media. Wait for the mic, please.
It's all, okay. Jazakallah so much. I just want the President to elaborate on some of the challenges faced by SAHUC in the 2023 Hajj. For instance, just this year alone, Salam Media received a complaint from from this couple who were doing Hajj that about Saudi Arabia's heavy-handedness to the Hujjaj, to the pilgrims that did not have proper documentation. So just, I would like you to come through for that. Thank you so much.
We'll take a few questions and then, okay. Next question.
Assalamu alaikum. Inayat Wadi from Salam Media as well. Well, while this ex gratia payment is obviously welcome, and I think this is groundbreaking. It's never ever happened before. But the President spoke about challenges within your control, and then you have challenges that are out of your control as well. And I would specifically want to make reference to these challenges that are out of your control, because apart from the issues that my colleague just mentioned, the issues of exploitation of Hujjaj as well seems to have featured very, very strongly, particularly when it comes to things like travel costs between Azizia and Makkah as well, being charged exorbitant prices as well. And this was an issue that was brought before as well with regard to the Ministry of Hajj in terms of regulating the Hajj industry to such an extent where exploitation doesn't take place as well. Now, I'm not too sure whether this would be within the scope of SAHUC to actually take up with the Ministry of Hajj as well. So there are issues within your control which we accept, and SAHUC needs to be commended for taking these issues, but there are issues out of your control, like, for example, the heavy-handedness and also the exploitation of Hujjaj in general.
Take another question. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's Habib Bobat from Radio Islam International. Firstly, we'd like to place on record, compliments to the team for a sterling job indeed. We were regularly touching base with you during the season of Hajj and also during the days of Hajj, and providing critical updates for the listeners of Radio Islam International. I've got two questions. The first one is, what advice does SAHUC have for prospective Hujjaj as well as people who are intending to undertake the journey of Umrah? We've seen many bogus operators prop up in the recent past in South Africa, the case in Cape Town, the case in Johannesburg, and the latest one where some pilgrims came on the Mujamala visas and they were stopped and they were told to go back to the country. What advice do you have for them in terms of how do they go about selecting proper tour operators, number one? And number two, what is the cost factor at the moment in terms of securing a visa for a person who intends to go for Umrah? Are there any updates that SAHUC can share with the listenership at the moment? Jazakallah khair.
There's no other question? Yes.
Firstly, Imran from Channel Islam. Well done to SAHUC for being there for a South African Hujjaj for so many years, alhamdulillah, and getting the procedures and processes so good, alhamdulillah. I know something last year that hit headlines everywhere was South Africa obviously sent Zinat Adam for the efficient management of South African Hajj and Umrah citizens. Did that have anything to do with getting a refund? Did it make any difference? Did that play any role in what was announced this morning? Jazakallah khair.
Okay, I'll get the panel to answer. Okay, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Abdul Kabir from INX. I would just like to ask though, now this refund process here now, is it going to be a once-off thing, or in the future, the Hujjaj can also, be rest assured that if anything comes up, then there's likely that, that they get refunded or they get compensated. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, let the panel answer these 5 questions. If there's any others, then we'll come back to the floor again.
Assalamu alaikum. To start off with Salam Media's first question, like I mentioned briefly in the press release, last year was the first time post-COVID that the ministry went back to huge numbers in terms of Hajis for Hajj. We saw it in the kingdom where we even felt that there was more numbers that were stipulated by the ministry in terms of the Hajis for 2023, 1444. This year, the ministry had opened up Umrah until a later stage, until the 29th of Zulqa'dah. So people could come for Umrah as well as tourists who are allowed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. What the ministry found is that other nationalities overstayed in the kingdom from Ramadan as well as overstayed the expiry date of their visas for Umrah. A tourist visa comes valid for 1 year, 90-day intervals, but the Umrah visa's validity is for 90 days. So to control the crowds, the ministry implemented a nusuk card for all the Hajis, so you could easily identify who was on Hajj versus who has overstayed their time in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. With regards to pricing, this also came from Salam Media, both for the 5 days of Hajj, as well as, let's call it, accommodation and airlines. This is a very important question. And I think many a times SAHUC is held responsible for the cost of Hajj. It's unfortunate. SAHUC does not sell any Hajj packages to any Hajj pilgrim. The only fee SAHUC charges is a registration fee and an accreditation fee, the totaling amount is 2,000 Rand per pilgrim. With regards to Hajj pricing, it's a valid question, a valid concern for all of us. We are also Muslims. We also have family and friends that embark on this journey of a lifetime. So yes, we do raise it at every single meeting. But I want everyone to just listen to me for a few seconds now, very attentively. If we were to tell you that the cost for Hajj, inclusive of the 5 days, is around 25,000 Rand per person, I bet you everybody would be lining outside this door right now, ready to register, ready to take on a flight. Now, when I say 25,000 Rand, let's go back and see that is the average real cost for a South African Haji, 25,000 reals. It is unfortunate that our South African Rand is very weak. So if you take the 20 or 25,000 Rand times by approximately 5, this is the reason why our pilgrims pay around 100,000 Rand a person. If our rate of exchange was 2 to 1 or 1 to 1, we would not be paying 100,000 Rand a person. So we need to be cognizant of this, because even if you were to travel to Dubai or America or to the UK, you're not going to pay 100 Rand. You're going to pay equivalent to the currency of the country that you will be traveling. Point number 2. A lot of people say, how come Umrah is so cheap in comparison to Hajj? One needs to remember, Umrah, majority of the South Africans only go for around 2 weeks for Umrah. Whilst for Hajj, pilgrims go for 6 weeks for Hajj. For Umrah, you only pay accommodation in Mecca and Medina, and then you come home. Whilst for Hajj, when you go for 6 weeks, you got to have accommodation in Mecca, accommodation in Medina, you got to have the 5 days of Hajj accommodation, you got to have accommodation in Azizia. All of that comes at a cost. So there is a difference. But if you want to truly compare Umrah versus Hajj, when we say peak period, then look at Ramadan, the last 10 days in Makkatul Mukarramah, and look at the Hajj prices, and then do your comparison. Because if somebody goes and look at what the South Africans paid this Umrah, the last 10 nights in Ramadan in Makkatul Mukarramah, in the exact same hotels that the Haji stay in, people were paying around 20,000 Rand a night in Ramadan. You don't pay that prices for Hajj. There was a question from Radio Islam with regards to Umrah and how do we motivate the mutammirin and go about finding a suitable travel operator. So the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah regulates Umrah. SAHUC does not regulate Umrah. The Ministry of Hajj and Umrah has a website. SAHUC has published the link to this website on social media. It is on our website as well. If any mutammirin wants to go for Umrah, you go to the Ministry of Hajj website, you select South Africa, and it will bring you all the service providers that are accredited by the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah to facilitate Umrah for the South African mutammirin. It's unfortunate that people ignore going onto the website prior to booking their Umrah trips because they find cheaper packages on social media which entices our mutammirin to prefer going to an unknown entity rather than going to an accredited Umrah travel operator which is registered and approved by the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah. So our advice, brothers and sisters, please go onto the Ministry of Hajj website. All the South African accredited travel operators for Umrah are listed, and preference is given for you to rather contact them and do your travels for Umrah via them. One need to be cognizant that since tourist visas is opened, people can now do their own booking. So people that are savvy with traveling on their own, you are more than welcome to do your own bookings via the ministry's platform, and you can facilitate your accommodation, your flights, as well as your tourist visa. There was a question from the brother of Channel Islam that the ministerial committee embarked on Hajj last year? And did this have any influence with regard to the ex gratia payment? Yes and no. The ministerial committee came to review what was happening on the ground in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That was their purpose for being on Hajj. They met with the role players in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with regards to what they observed themselves in Camp D. They did not visit Camp A at all because their task was to be with the majority of the South African Muslims. SAHUC engaged with the ministerial committee during the days of Hajj that we will be raising these matters at the highest level. We had copied and kept DIRCO in the loop of everything that transpired throughout this past few months. We kept the Royal Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the loop as well. Whether the ministerial committee went and spoken to the ministry, we are not aware of it, and I cannot comment about it, unfortunately. There was a comment from the brother from INX. Is this ex gratia payment a once-off, or will this be an ongoing thing? Like I mentioned in the press conference, whenever there is any contractual non-service delivery from any travel operator or from a service provider, then that will be addressed. In future and going forward, if there is any non-service delivery by a service provider or by a travel operator, SAHUC will address the matter at the time, depending on what contractual deviations there are against what has been promised to the pilgrim versus what is being offered. Inshallah al-Azim. Shukran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We've got a question coming on social media. Shafiq from the Voice of the Cape asking, has SAHUC managed to find the true population numbers for quota? We say 4 million Muslims in South Africa, hence 4,000 quota. You know, this quota matter, and I think Inayat and various other media houses, Radio Islam will bear witness to the fact that we've had lengthy discussion about this. The quota is a ratio that is determined by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that was given to the Islamic Association of Conferences, IOC, or Islamic Association of Countries, back in 1986. SAHUC was born in 1995, 1996. We had nothing to do with that quota number or that quota ratio. If our government can prove that we have 4 million Muslims in this country, automatically our quota will become 4,000. Unfortunately, we've recently had a census in the last 12 months, and many a Muslim did not participate in that census. I don't know what the reasoning behind it is, but this would have helped our government to determine the exact number or close to the exact number of Muslim people in this country. I do believe that this is a very, very big failure on our behalf. Earlier in last year, we addressed a congregation in Cape Town, and we asked the question, how many people in the hall has actually completed the census? Out of 1,800 people, a third of them put their hands up. And that is testimony not only to Cape Town, but to Johannesburg and to Durban and various other parts of the country as well. So in terms of the quota, we will only get an increase in the quota if the official number from the government of South Africa is communicated effectively to the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, inshallah. Muaz, if you don't mind, just can I add on to something that the question was asked? The question was asked about the excessive cost between Azizia and the 5 days, or Azizia and Makkah during Hajj. The unfortunate thing that we have is that every market in the world is an open market. Residents of the city of Makkatul Mukarramah and the surrounding suburbs see this as an opportunity to make additional funds. And whatever they charge in the exorbitant, amounts. I had a friend who performed Hajj this year, and he said they started off with 800 riyals per person and eventually settled at 100 riyals per person. Negotiation between yourself and the transport person is obviously of paramount importance. These are ambits outside of SAHUC's control and conduct, something that we unfortunately cannot do. But we also have to be appreciative of the fact that the majority of people in South Africa want to go for 6 weeks Hajj. They don't want to stay for four people in a room. They want to stay 2 people in a room. A couple room costs you a lot of money. The cost of food in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has gone up exponentially, as a result of the increase in service costs, in inflation, in taxes that have been imposed in Saudi Arabia. These are all aspects that are not unique only to Saudi Arabia, but unique throughout the world. And as our president had indicated, our rand-dollar exchange rate in South Africa is excessively weak. If we go back to 2018 or 2017 or 2015, the prices are varying in size and in structure. But bear in mind what I spoke about earlier as well. Privatization has now come into the Hajj industry. And as a result of that privatization, it's going to be a markup that we, unfortunately, as users, are going to have to find ways to reduce as best possible. So we look out to the operators out there who create the packages and pray that those operators are going to find uncanny ways that are going to reduce the costs of Hajj. We also need the public out here to be understanding of the fact that there are 3 seasons in Hajj: the low season, the shoulder season, and the premium season. And the low season is your 6-week period. Your shoulder season is the period from about the 15th of Zil-Qaidah to the 25th of Zil-Qaidah. And your premium period is from the 25th of Zil-Qaidah to the 4th of Zil-Hijjah. After Hajj in Medina is regarded as a premium period as well. And that is why our Hujjaj don't go to Medina after Hajj. We try to make sure that we facilitate and provide the best possible manner in which the costs can be curtailed. But what is outside of our control, static costs in a package, is outside of SAHUC's control. And the 2 biggest factors in terms of static costs are the 5 days of Hajj and the airfares that are being paid. Post-COVID, the airfares have gone up exponentially. And it doesn't only affect the pilgrims, it affects our mission as well, and the cost of the mission as well. Before we end off, Jazakallah for that, are there any other questions from the floor? Maulana? There's a mic.
Earlier on, Hafiz Muaz said that they'll be opening up the platform for volunteers to join the SAHUC team for the mission. Is it a criterion for them to have performed Hajj previously in order to join the team, or it's open for anybody?
Absolutely, but I think Hafiz Muaz, our president, mentioned 2 types of volunteers to come forward. SAHUC has never closed its door to people who want to apply to become members of SAHUC. Whether you are on the National General Council structure or whether you are on an individual volunteer structure, you can become members of SAHUC and be part and parcel of the process within which the organization administers and regulates the Hajj industry. With regards to the Hajj mission, one of the prerequisites is very, very clear that you must have made Hajj previously. And the reason being because none of the mission workers or medical mission workers perform Hajj during that time. Our sole purpose and niyyah is to go and serve the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as much as we are with the pilgrim on Mina, on Arafah and on Muzdalifah, none of us are in ihram. Jazakallah. Ponti?
Assalamu alaikum. Salamida has been covering Hajj from its inception back in 2016. Just wanted to take advantage of the fact that we have the Saudi authority and officially in our presence. We have never received an invitation to cover Hajj. Just want to find out what is the criteria for us going to Saudi to cover Hajj. And I'm not only speaking for Salam Media, there are many other good Muslim radio stations that would like to. So I felt that we are, it feels like somehow we are being excluded. Just want to find out what is the problem? Why are we not being afforded this opportunity to cover this important pillar of Islam? Thank you so much.
Jazakallah, Ponti. But before I hand over to the official, did you apply to become a Hajj correspondent in the, for the kingdom of, or for the period of Hajj? That's an important question.
Well, Shaheen, not for this Hajj in particular, but we've had experiences in the past where we've actually gone through the process, through the embassy, making applications, and sadly, there has been a lack of communication in that regard.
The official is here, and I'm sure he'll be able to give some feedback in this regard. Failing which, maybe get in touch with our president and see how, SAHUC can try to assist. Not promising that it will be done, but SAHUC can try to assist, inshallah.
Shukran, Shaheem. Is there any more questions before we go to the few of the questions we received on social media? Any more questions? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. I'm Muhammad Rais. I performed Hajj last year. No question, I just like to thank SAHUC, and we really appreciate all the work that you have done for us and for the previous Hujjaj. And we really appreciate that you have gone through this to go and get the refund for all the shortcomings. Jazakumullah bil khair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you.
Any more questions from the floor? There's a question here before I hand over to the President to answer some of the questions. There's one question here of clarification of the funds received by SAHUC. You've had something to the effect whether we're keeping any of the funds behind. 100% of the funds that will be received or is received will be just given to the pilgrims. 100% of it. Nothing is held back by SAHUC for no fees. 100% of the funds that we're receiving will be disseminated to the pilgrims. I was Mazi, you can answer the balance of the questions.
I think the last question from the listeners is, do we have to need the requirement of the Hajj operators? Why can't we travel through SAHUC without the Hajj operators? Do I answer this question or don't I answer the question? No, I think we are classified as a Hajj mission. We are known as the Betha, the Hajj mission of South Africa. And under us are the travel operators of South Africa who are accredited by SAHUC on an annual basis. Yes, we do need travel operators for Hajj. And no. The question is, if SAHUC were to take the Hajjis on its own, then you could have some implications in terms of competition commission, in terms of SAHUC only being the regulator and, the regulator and player for Hajj. And we have discussed this in detail with the government as well as the embassy. And right now we feel that it will remain a status quo, as SAHUC being the regulator body, and we'll have accredited travel operators under SAHUC to manage the process for our Hajjis. We do keep in touch with the operators on a regular basis. They've got to go through onerous check and balances with regards to the application. It is a workable solution at this point in time, and inshallah it will continue unless otherwise it has to change. But for now, status quo will remain, SAHUC being the regulator body and travel operators will be under SAHUC.
We take there's no more questions. We wanted to keep this press briefing short. So we're going to close this press briefing. Before we close, we want to ask Qari Musa Sidat to render a closing dua. I just want to thank all the media houses for covering the event live. Those at present, those who are streaming live. I hope I don't mess up the name. Voice of the Cape, Radio 786, IFM, Radio Al Ansar, Radio Islam International, Channel Islam International, Sirius FM, Salam Media, INX Prime, its television stations, as well as Hilal TV, Par Excellence for doing the broadcast and giving the feed to the various media houses, Jacaranda FM as well, IOL and The Star also for being present and covering the event. There are many other media platforms, I suppose, that are streaming live and taking this to your platforms. We thank you for your time and the effort in helping us to get this message, this good news, this momentous occasion of receiving over 3 million Saudi riyals that will be given to 3,500 pilgrims of Hajj 2023 for challenges that they experience during the Hajj season. Qari Musa Sidat, you may close with the dua.
اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام، حينا ربنا بالسلام وادخلنا دار السلام. تبارك ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم ثبتنا على الإيمان ومتنا على الإيمان واحشرنا يوم القيامة مع الإيمان بحرمة القرآن وبحرمة النبي آخر الزمان. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان وجعلنا من الراشدين وجعلنا من المتقين وجعلنا من الصالحين. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم انصر المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيب: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.